People overanalyze everything to every magnitude, but they don't ask themselves why they do it or what they can do to get away from that, right? The quickest way to get over it is to do, right? Action first.
Welcome to the Carla Rand Show, a weekly podcast designed to dig into the lives of everyday people. People who are making a positive impact, people who have risen above and overcome obstacles. Insights and stories from ordinary individuals who inspire us all towards the truly extraordinary. Here's your host.
Hey, it's Carla, and I just got to talk to Grant Corriveau. He's a fitness and nutrition coach like I am, so we got to talk about that a little bit. Talk about, building muscle, getting strength, losing weight, all that kind of stuff. But we got to talk also about scarcity mindset and how, when you have a scarcity mindset, it really prevents you from doing so many things in your life, whether it's, building up your body, whether it's building up your mindset, whether it's being able to achieve maybe some goals and dreams that you have. And so Grant was able to talk about how he got from a place of fear and doubt and scarcity to a place now where he's really doing well in his life and he's gained such positive skills. So I really enjoyed our conversation, both before we hit record and after we hit record. Just a really genuine, humble guy, and I know you're going to love this conversation. All right, well, I have Grant Corriveau on the podcast with me today. And Grant, I'm so excited to talk to you today. Thank you so much for being part of the Carla Rand Show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Super pumped about this.
Yeah. And Grant is a fitness and nutrition coach. And Grant is, Grant, I'm going to just say, when I was chatting with you, I was just like, man, this guy has so much humility. Like, you were just so happy to be able to chat with me, and you're so thankful for experiences, and you're talking about how you want to grow, and you're so teachable, and you want to learn, and yet you're absolutely crushing it, right? So it's like, you're so open to learning, and I think that's probably why you are crushing it, because you're so teachable, and you're like, hey, I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to do more, I want to level up in my life, I want to overcome obstacles in my life, and there's so much, you have so much energy, and there's so much positivity surrounding you just as I chat with you. So that's really awesome. So Grant, let's get into, you want to say something?
Absolutely.
Sorry.
It was not always like this. I can guarantee you that. Think of the meat and potatoes type of person, right? That ends up just having the same meal every single day, starting to branch off into new things, right? Think about it like that. Like it hasn't always been like this. So
right.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so cool though, Grant, right? And I think that's probably why you are that way, because you've had to become that way in order to be successful in your career and successful just like as an individual, right? To have that positive mindset and to be able to do the things in your life. And I want to get all into that. I want to talk about scarcity mindset and how that's been a factor in your life and how you've been able to overcome it. But let's just give the audience a little bit of context. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you grew up and a little bit about your family and all that kind of stuff, Grant?
Okay. All right. This is unique. Okay. So I grew up in a small town. I'm still currently in that small town, just outside of Ottawa, Ontario. So it's called Pembroke. Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into that with the scarcity mindset. But yeah, it was really interesting. Myself and my brother were super close, right? We're a big fan, wrestling fans. So we would end up doing everything, revolved around wrestling. We would create our own little shows and whatnot. And we would be that group that would be recognized in school for hitting each other in the heads with chairs.
Oh, geez.
So it was really interesting. But yeah, it was, it was a lower class kind of, I guess, family, I guess you could say. We kind of grew up in the projects around town and actually just a couple blocks away from where I currently live now. It's really interesting how things have changed. But yeah, I mean, without kind of going into it too much, it was a very simple lifestyle. It was basically myself and my older brother kind of hanging out. Most of my life, I have two older siblings, two older sisters, who are 15 and 17 years older than I am. My mother's in her 70s right now, so it's quite the diverse family. All the same parents, by the way, too. So yeah,
cool. Yeah, and what about school, Grant? What was that like for you?
Couldn't stand it. Not a fan of it whatsoever. I love the people that I hung around with and my friends and whatnot, but for the most part, I didn't really like school. Didn't do very well in school. However, some of the things that I did exceed in, yeah, I guess that'd be a story for another time. But yeah, it was all right. I mean, the thing that was the most troublesome is the fact that I got bullied a lot in school. So that was kind of part of my transformation, if you will, from where I was then to where I am now. I used to be, that typical skinny kid. You can see the ribs popping out. I mean, like, it was just very unhealthy looking. But no matter how much I tried, I couldn't seem to put on any muscle mass, and it was very it's just an awful setting whenever I go to school every single day and get reminded of that, even from my closest friends, which was, really a really interesting time. But anyway, yeah, that was kind of basically how my school, growing up in school was like for me.
Okay, so you kind of grew up in this poor family, like you didn't have a lot of money, correct?
Yep, correct.
And you got bullied, and you got bullied because of the way you looked then, because you were really scrawny? Is that?
I would say that's part of it. But the other thing was too, I was always trying to be myself, but no matter what, I would always get picked on for that. Like, I'm a very kind of out there person, right? I'm very outgoing. I'm very like, I don't really care what people think. So like, people don't typically mention that they used to do backyard wrestling whenever they're kids and whatnot. Right? So I'm very open about that, very open and honest. And I think just the one value that I always have was I wanted to stick by my guns. However I am, that's who I want to be, and I don't want to be something else that I'm not. Even whenever I was a kid at a young age, it was always the same thing for me.
Hmm. Yeah. So what kind of like, you go through this, you get bullied. Was there a time where that ended, Grant, for you? Or did you just feel like you've kind of been bullied in a sense your whole life? Or what would you say?
Well, I believe the time that it stopped was probably whenever I turned 18. I started training seriously. Like, I was training whenever I was younger too, but I really started making it more my passion, whatnot, whenever I turned 18. Eating the way that I should be, training the way that I should be, feeling everything that I'm working instead of just kind of going through the motions. That whenever I started building a little bit more muscle, that's whenever I stopped getting picked on and started getting noticed. So
Mm.
that's kind of how it started.
So you felt like because you started looking stronger, that probably helped your self-confidence as well. So you probably came across more confident, and then people started noticing that, hey, this guy's pretty strong and confident. Is that sort of
Uh,
accurate?
Absolutely,
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
Cool. So what kind of has held you back in your life, Grant? Because I know like you started out like that, and now you have so much confidence, successful, you're teachable, you want to learn, you want to grow. How did you kind of get there? What are some obstacles that you've had to overcome in order to get there? What are some maybe like limiting beliefs or whatever you want to touch on there?
It took me a long time to figure this out, but my entire life was based on doubt. I lived doubt, right? I doubted myself in my school, my abilities, what I figure I could do for a career path, finances. I mean, you name it. I doubted myself in it because I don't. It was that was. I mean, that's short. That's the short end of the stick. I lived doubt. I lived and breathed doubt.
Mm. So you didn't think that you could really achieve anything that was maybe as from significance or any like what were you wanting to do, Grant, that you weren't able to do that made you believe that?
Oh man. I wanted to do something for me, right? People close to me always told me that I should get a secure position, right? Like be in the military or be like a police officer, something like that. Something that has benefits, a secure job. I always wanted to do something way out there. So to be 100% honest, I actually wanted to be a pro wrestler.
Mm.
So, right. So whenever it came down, like, we researched the school. There's one up in Toronto. We actually went there, myself and my brother, a couple of the friends of ours. We didn't end up making anything of it, but that's ultimately what I want to do for a living.
Do you still want to do that, Grant? Or do something like that?
Oh man. I do, but at the same time, based on like the travel time and whatnot, I wouldn't be able to do it. I
Yeah.
would not be able to do it. There's way too much dedication to the road, and that's something that I wouldn't want to be a part of.
Yeah.
I like my home life.
Right. Yeah. So talk to me about scarcity mindset, Grant. I think this is a big word that a lot of people talk about. Maybe it's a bit of a buzzword even. Scarcity, scarcity, scarcity. You talked about doubt. I think there's a lot of similarities between scarcity and doubt. But what is a scarcity mindset to you and how has that impacted you?
It took me a while to kind of articulate because you kind of have a sense as to what it is, but to actually put it in words, it serves to be a lot more challenging. So what I would say is a scarcity mindset is trading your freedom for fear without really being aware of it.
Mm.
So another way of saying would be like, it's a condition to be afraid of our choices because it's the only thing that we know.
So what did you say? Trading fear for
Trading freedom for
freedom.
fear.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then to get over it, you sort of have to do the opposite. So trading your freedom for being afraid of everything and thinking that you can't do something, essentially.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because it just, your subconscious is always trying to tell you that you're not good enough if that's something that you believe internally. So an example that would be, hey, I want to get more muscular, I want to get more fit, I want to be confident. And your mind is that thing that you're battling every time you pick up the weights and every time you do something that's physically challenging yourself, right? That's the thing that stops you from going to the next couple reps higher or picking up the heavier weight or challenging yourself. It all comes from that psyche, right? So, I mean, I traded my, at one point in time, I mean, I'm still working through it from time to time, depending on what we're talking about, but I traded my freedom, to be limitless and be able to, lift instead of X number weight to the next level up, or do powerlifting, or do something to that next level, for fear, because it was comfortable and it was what I knew. It was familiar to me. Right. So like whenever somebody, say, for example, like in the fitness world, they're starting to get started on themselves, they're starting to lose some weight, all of a sudden something happens where life happens and they just kind of let go of their fitness, sit back on the couch and just kind of watch Netflix and watch their gains go to waste. Right. They kind of trade it back for that comfort because the stress of continuing it seems to be too overwhelming.
Yeah. So, what are some things that you've done to get over that, Grant? Like, because, a lot of people say, oh, rah, rah, like you just gotta, doesn't matter if you don't feel like it, just go lift the weights and just go do it. But people still kind of sabotage themselves. They still think that they can never get that. I know I have people telling me, they're like, well, I'm just not the athletic type, Carla. Or I'm just not, like, I've always given up on myself, or I don't think it's going to work for me because I've always been a failure at this. And so like everything they tell me, I'm just like, check, check, check. Like you just gave every excuse for you to stay stuck where you are. Like, right? We got to get rid of these beliefs right from the start. Like, what would you say about that?
Man, this is a loaded question. Okay, so if I were to get rid, so there are two things. So number one, obviously consistency, right? Like just being consistent in whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to become fit and strong, right? Again, most people don't care about the scale. Most people don't care about what they look like. They're after what that actually gets them. Right, which leads me to my next thing, right? So we'll get into that in just a second, but when you're working out and you're challenging yourself and progressing by lifting more, working harder, eating better, all of these things are solidifying the fact that you are good enough and you can do it. That's what the practice is. It's just putting in the reps. Right? At first you suck at running. At first you suck at lifting weights, but you get better because you're putting in the reps and get more confident because you're more comfortable with that. It becomes your new comfort, right? So number one, 100% consistency. And what the transition equals up to is, I guess, asking better questions. Always asking yourself a better question. Whenever you hit that plateau, most people flop. Right? It's all about asking yourself the right questions. What is causing me to get in this funk? What can I do now to get away from that? I listened to a great podcaster. Anyway, so he had mentioned that, like, I guarantee if you just put in like a 10-minute warm up, and if you don't feel like working out, you put in a 10-minute warm up, I guarantee that you're going to feel that much. You are going to work out and you're going to get your workout in just by putting in the work at the beginning. So just getting the blood flowing, just getting it going, just because that alertness, right? That blood flow, that energy will come. You just literally have to stop thinking and start doing. People overanalyze everything to every magnitude, but they don't ask themselves why they do it or what they can do to get away from that, right? The quickest way to get over it is to do, right? Action first.
Yeah, I know yesterday I was feeling kind of like sluggish. I was kind of feeling irritable. I was out of my routine. I slept in a bit. It just did, and I went to go do some pull-ups. I'm like, I got it. And they were so hard, Grant. And I was like, this just sucks. So then I was like, okay, well, forget it. I did, I think 3 sets or whatever. And I'm like, hey, forget that. And so I went on the treadmill and I ran for about 30 minutes. And then I went back and I did the pull-ups and I was just like busting them out. Now you think I'd be more tired, right? Like I should be more tired, so it should be harder. But it was like my mindset. My mind was ready to go. I just started, I did something, and then boom, I felt like I could take on the world,
Yes, yes. You got to spend energy to make energy.
Yeah.
Right? That's how, like, if I ever feel tired and sluggish first thing in the morning, I'm like peeling myself out of bed. I got to move. I got to do something, right? I'm so animated with my actions. And it makes me feel good automatically just by moving more.
Yeah.
Right? It could be something as simple as, like, I don't know. I'm a crazy person. I mean, first thing in the morning, we're dancing with loud music at like 4 or 5 in the morning, right? With the dog and cat going wild, right? So just move around or just make things more exciting. If your environment is not exciting enough, make it more exciting for yourself.
That's what I do. Like, so if everyone's kind of sleeping, and I don't do it too early because I've got, getting slammed for that before, but I wait. And if it's like, getting late enough, I crank the music as loud as possible on the big speaker. And I'm just like bebopping around and I'm like, okay, everybody, it's time to wake up. And so they wake up to this like booming music, but I'm like, you know what, like I'm ready to go, and hopefully it energizes them. Nobody's like kicked me out yet, so but get all the kids up, and if the husband's sleeping in the morning, like I give him his time, but then it's like, okay, let's all get going, and it's kind of a fun way. So yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like I would love to do it at 4 a.m, except I've got like other family that are sleeping, but if they weren't sleeping, you bet I'd be rocking it out at 4 a.m for sure.
Right. Motion creates that emotion.
Yeah.
Right? I did not create that quote, by the way, but motion creates emotion, right? That's how it works.
Yeah.
Move around, you feel better.
I know so many people say, Carla, how do you have so much energy? Because there's some days where I do 2 or even 3, 50-minute like hit type workouts because I'm doing recording. I know it's kind of crazy, right? How do you do it? Like, you must be so tired. Why don't you sit down? I'm like, no. Like, what do most people say about me? Carla, you have so much energy. Why do I have energy? Because I create energy, like you said. I'm working out, I'm doing it. Now, there is such a thing as overtraining, right? Where you just, you go too hard. And so there's that balance for sure. But I don't think that's most people's situation. Most people are not overtraining. Most people feel sluggish and tired because they're not creating that energy for themselves. And that's essentially, I think, the root of the problem.
Right. Yes. I couldn't agree more. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah. So we could keep talking about fitness and nutrition and working out because I think we both are very passionate about that. But I want to talk again about the scarcity mindset. And for you, where did that come from? We got to tone this down now, Grant. But where did that come from for you? The doubt, the fear, the scarcity? Because that obviously originated from something, and I don't want to just gloss over that.
I could go really deep with this. So,
go if you want.
My initial family, there's a lot of doubt in there, right? There's a lot, like there was. It's not like it was a bad childhood. Like I want to be clear on that. It's just, whenever it comes to certain things, certain aspirations, they were conditioned to believe a certain way, because they didn't have money or they didn't have the certain success that they wanted, things to that effect, and that kind of bled into our lifestyle as well, right? It's just. How deep do you want me to go with this?
You go deep as you want, Grant. Yeah, like it's totally fine. We've got the time for it. I think it would be helpful for the listeners to hear your journey because I suspect that there's going to be a lot of listeners that are going to have a similar story. And maybe they haven't really taken a look and found out where that scarcity mindset has come from. So I feel like, can we help our listeners by you sharing where yours came from? And then they can maybe put the pieces together and be like, oh, maybe that's what's going on here with me too. Right? But whatever you're comfortable sharing,
Right. So it was basically, it stemmed from, of course, my childhood. Ever since I could remember, we didn't have a whole lot of money. We didn't have a whole lot of this or that or success or whatever the case. So it was always about whatever we can guarantee that we can get first, which is not a lot. Every time I said that I wanted to do something in my life, I would get naysayers, right? I want to be a pro wrestler, right? For example, that's pretty intense right, to think of something like that to begin with. But that was kind of shunned on. I said, I want to be a personal trainer. And the first answer that I got from someone I was talking on the phone with was, oh, that's great, but you're not going to be very successful, right? It was awful. It's like this was the type of support that was around me, and it was something that I just couldn't deal with anymore. So the more of that doubt that kind of came up, the more I resented it, the more I had to make a change for myself. And I kind of use that as fuel, if you will, to get to the place that I am now, helping other people make sure that they never feel the same thing that I've felt before.
Mm. Yeah, I've had that too, Grant. Like, where like I'm really careful who I share stuff with, because if I say, "Hey, I want to do this big thing," and sometimes when I tell people that, I'll be like, "Look, like don't tell anybody, but this is actually what my dream and goal is," and they're kind of like, "Yeah, that is really big." I'm like, "I know, like keep it under wraps, because if we let this get out, I'm gonna have naysayers coming at me from every angle." So I don't say too much. I share certain things with my husband, and I'll just and I preface it with, honey, this is some goals. These are some things that are putting on my heart. This is what I feel I'm called to do. And he's very good about it. But he also has to kind of like, I notice him catching himself sometimes, right? To like not be like, oh, but Carla, like, how are you going to do that? Right? That seems pretty extreme. Like, I think you need to tone that one down a bit. And I'm kind of like you, like, I don't want to tone it down, right? Like, I'm excited about this and I'm going to make it happen. And just tell me that I'm not going to make it happen, Like, and thankfully I have that mindset. The more you tell me I can't, the more I'm probably going to do it. But if you don't have that mindset already, it makes it very difficult. Did you have that mindset? Or when the naysayers would say something to you, did you really internalize that and be like, yeah, you know what, you're right, I won't be able to do this?
I got slapped in the face a lot with my dreams and aspirations, because the first time I get so excited about it, I just can't hold it in. And again, very animated. Mm-hmm. I got to say what's on my mind right away, because it's so overwhelming, the positivity that I'm feeling with the dream that I have. So I go tell people, and they're like, bam. What are you talking about, right?
Yeah.
If I could go back to the past that I was dealing with, there was one key point that I recognized that was just once I realized it, it really changed my life, because I realized how far I came. But at first, you don't realize these things, right? Mm-hmm. I realized that there were two people. Loved them to death. They were in the type of relationship that is not, it's not a great relationship, right? There's the supporter, right? The male figure is always trying to be the supporter, the person that's always make sure that the wife is not feeling the pain, any discomfort whatsoever. So they will sacrifice everything that they can to make sure that they do that and they provide, right? Where the wife was just troubled, right? On so many different levels. So because I spent a lot of time with these people, and then what I've realized was I was actually adopting some of those same patterns, right? I ended up getting into a relationship that was not the way that it should be. And I'd be a lot more blunt about this, but I'm not sure how blunt I could be about this.
You could be, yeah, go ahead, be blunt.
Okay, so I'm going to be extremely blunt, very open, very honest about this. What I noticed was I started replicating the same type of relationship that I saw here, mm-hmm. right? I ended up getting into a relationship that I was physically abused and mentally abused. But everything I was trying to do was provide, right? I'm going to help you. I'm going to help this. It became more about helping them than it became about growing, right, together. And that's just how it was. And it just became my normal. And I just didn't see anything wrong with that. And anytime someone were to point that out to me, I'd say, you're crazy. Like, what do you know, right? My relationship is my relationship. Once I realized, or once I was finally out of that position like it's a job, once I, got married to my amazing wife, I realized everything that I didn't have, right? I mean, the fact that I was able to now openly talk to her about things that I feel like I could have never shared with anyone. We ended up growing together instead of staying at the same level. So the same fear that I lived my entire life thinking about how I doubt this and doubt that. It was like doing it on repetition, on repeat, right? Because every time I would go back to the household in my past life, I'll say, my past relationship, it was like another verification, like, you are limited. You're only supposed to be here. You're never supposed to go any further than this, because this is what you're meant to be. So whenever I finally got the freedom, I guess you could say, and I started opening my eyes and realizing how much more was out there for me. I didn't have the blinders on anymore, looking at looking at all the negativity away because further ahead from me. It was just like there was so many more opportunities, and there's no more limitations, and there's no more doubt. And I realized that I'm there now. There's freedom, and there's a lot to be a lot to get out of this, and a lot of lessons to learn, and a lot of work to do, but still a lot to get from it. And freedom was ultimately what I was after, right? People are looking again to be the fittest, have the fittest bodies that they of all time, right? That they've maybe never had before. And I was after that freedom. Ultimately, I wasn't after even confidence. I was after freedom, that I don't have to be chained down or limited to any decisions I wanted to make just because I was afraid of making it.
Yeah, I think it's so true. Like, I don't want to gloss over some of the stuff you said, because I think, like, most of us can look back and think of at least maybe 2 or 3 different people, some sort of a relationship, whether it's a parent, a sibling, a best friend, a teacher, whatever. Somebody is, being that naysayer for you. And it might not even be really extreme, right? Like, it may not be as bad as what you had, Grant, where they're, basically like, you're never going to be successful at that. Maybe it's just subtle, but we pick up on that, especially if it's somebody that we know, like, and trust. We assume that they're right. And I think by doing that and internalizing their narrative for our lives, we hold ourselves back. And I don't know how many people I see doing that. They're like, oh, well, again, I'm not the athletic type, or my dad always said this, or my mom thought I should always be this. And it's like, what do you want to do? Where are your passions, gifts, abilities? What's your purpose? Never mind what that person's saying. And some parents do the opposite, Grant, and they're like, my kid's amazing. They're going to be in the NBA, and they're, and they just like, and the kid's just like, whoa, right? And so I think there's maybe 2 extremes, but I feel like if I had to pick, I would rather a parent that's like, maybe pushing me than one that's pulling me down. Although I know that there's problems with that. Anyways, that's another conversation. But I just think if we can listen to our, who are those people for us, and start being more objective about it. When they say it, think about it. What are they saying to me? What do I believe about that when they say that? And am I going to let them hold me back? And is that, is there truth to what they're saying? Or are they just saying it? And really, I don't think we can be super critical of these people in our lives either, because they have, I feel like they're victims in a way too, because they've had that same narrative like when they were growing up, right? That they couldn't do things, or don't reach for the stars, like whatever. Don't be way out there. Don't be too dramatic, or think that you're some amazing person, because you're not. And I feel like, there's so many lessons to be learned when we just stop and really think about those people in our lives.
What I realized about that, because again, like whether you're talking about one of the hot topics like religion or politics or someone's belief, whether you like this hot sauce or if you don't, right? Whenever you talk to that person, what I've realized is you should be taking it personally. The reason why they're responding so passionately is because they believe in that, and they are projecting their beliefs or mirroring their beliefs on what they think you should be believing, right? So that's why we have so much, debates in so many different areas and whatnot, because, at the end of the day, if I tell my friend, hey, I like this kind of hot sauce, and they say, no, this is absolutely god awful. No, not at all. Right. Then it's your choice. It's your opinion. It's your life. Right. Don't allow someone else's opinion to smash yours just because they are who they are. Maybe if they're someone you look up to, right? The one thing I never wanted to do was disappoint certain people, so I wouldn't announce some of my passions or whatnot, because I was afraid of that judgment. But at the end of the day, right, this is about you. It's your lifestyle, your opportunities. If you so choose to accept those opportunities that's coming your way. Sorry, I was going a bit of a rant here.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's kind of, that's totally normal. So what's been the most helpful thing, do you think, Grant, for you to overcome these kind of, I guess, essentially lies about who you are and what you're capable of? How have you, we talked about it a little bit, right? But how have you been able to get over that in your life?
Consistently challenging myself every single day, every single decision. So I had to, first of all, be aware of the decisions I was making, right? A lot of people, they'll go on autopilot. They're, driving to their destination. They'll just appear there. Oh my God, what happened, right? I don't even remember the drive up here. They're not being aware of the decisions that they're making, whether they're making this turn or if they're going straight. Same with our decision making, right? I was not being aware of the decisions I was making. I was just kind of going on autopilot. And that's what happens when you believe in something as strong as doubt, is it just becomes such a natural part of your lifestyle it's a natural kind of decision to make, that based on doubt, because it's going to be comfortable, and you don't even know that you're thinking about that. So number one is definitely being aware of the decisions that you have to make. So just whatever it is, my wife had this amazing analogy, because I'll get on this rant and again, I'm very passionate. So if I'm passionately happy, imagine what that looks like on the dark side.
Right. Yeah.
So she came up with this amazing idea. You think of a giant red stop sign. Stop, halt, who goes there? Right. And when you think about this, it acts as a pattern interrupt. So if you're thinking about something negative, think about that big red sign and start asking yourself, what direction do I want to go in? Right. So that was one thing. So being aware, and then asking better questions. I would say those two things 100%. Because otherwise, like, again, you have to be consistent. Otherwise, it's very easy to slip up and go back to old ways, because, again, that's something that you knew for a very long time, right? The whole point is, if you're just starting on this life now, living the way that you want to, based on some of the decisions that you're making, and say, for example, you're like 30 years old, that's 30 years of that imprinted emotion or feeling that you have to correct and rewrite, if you will, if that makes sense.
Totally. And did you come on this like yourself, Grant, or were there people along your way, like maybe coaches, therapists, even good friends that maybe helped to point you in the right direction, helped you see how you had those negative beliefs, that scarcity mindset, the fears, etc.?
Oh my God. I'm an analyzer, and I knew how to analyze things the right way once I started getting what it was I actually wanted. So part of it was me. I would also translate things that I would hear. So say, for example, if you were trying to learn about, I don't know, about how to live a better life or whatever, and you're reading this, a book on, like, say, finances and money and whatnot, you basically translate the whole book. Instead of using the word money in every sentence, think a better life, right? So if you want to have more money or a better life, whatever, do A, B, C, X, Y, Z, right? So it's a lot of translating. I would just kind of open my mind up to another alternate message that I'd be listening to. So different coaches and whatnot that I was fortunate to be a part of their coaching programs, things that I would research online, videos I would watch, podcasts I would listen to, the whole 9 yards, everything. I would just kind of articulate it in a way that would translate best to me and what I was feeling and what I want to accomplish. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And that's the same thing with me. There's a lot of things that I would not have been aware of at all unless I would have had somebody kind of point it out. Or like you said, you hear somebody talking about something, you're like, okay, well, that maybe isn't me, but like that applies to this circumstance. And so you can start putting the pieces together, and you can start actually like seeing how you can get out of it. I know for me too, like recently, just talking to a therapist, and somebody, oh, why do you talk to a therapist? Why don't you go, talk to your friends, talk to your family? Because your friends and family tend, not always, but they tend to have the same narrative, right? Like that's often where you get the beliefs from in the first place. And a lot of the beliefs can be awesome. They can be so good. And I will say, Grant, growing up, like I really did feel like I could do anything I wanted to do. Like I never really felt like I was limited. So I'm very blessed that way. But there's always things that, there's other things that come up, and why am I struggling with this? What's going on? And sometimes a therapist or someone that's more objective, they can help you to be more objective. So you can step back and really evaluate what's going on rather than getting caught up again in that, like, this is what I've always known. This is what I've always been told. This is who I am, right?
Absolutely. They are that stop sign that we're talking about, right? They're the pattern interrupt. They get you to kind of analyze things differently. I guess going in another kind of direction is the question that I had to ask myself was, do I want to wait till I get, because again, we only make a decision based on one of two things, right? We're either at our absolute worst, at the bottom barrel of how we're feeling at our worst, or we're kind of at our best, that we feel like we have the freedom to make different decisions. So I was kind of nearing that end zone where I'm like, man, I feel like I'm at my wit's end with everything that I'm doing right now. What do I do now? So it just depends. It's like, do you want to have the choice to be able to do what you want now, or do you want to wait until the worst case scenario? And you have to be very real about that. Like, what kind of push do you need? An aggressive push or a light push? A push that you have control over.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. Like, like let's deconstruct the bomb before it goes off, kind of thing. Like, let's not wait till the bomb goes off. So yeah, what would you say then to people who are like, they want to do better in their life? Maybe they feel stuck, maybe they're struggling, but how do we best reach those big sort of goals? The people that are kind of like, yeah, actually I have this goal and actually I really want to do this, but I don't want to say too much. What would you say to that person? How can they reach their goals? How can they sort of live their best life, or however you want to word that?
It's a question on how much freedom that they really want. I mean, do they want, if I were just to simplify it as much as possible, I would just say, if you have the smallest inkling, I guess, of doing something because you believe in it, or you're a fan of it, or you're passionate about it, I would just say, simply do it. Make the move faster than your mind can think about it. Right? So take action fast, very, very fast. Don't even think, just do. Just do. Mm-hmm. We've already given way too much time and power to analyzing things, right? I mean, if I'm like, I don't know how many, like my wife can attest to this, I don't know how much time that we've wasted just thinking about what we're going to have for dinner, right? We would waste an hour just thinking about what we're going to have for dinner. It's right. So we're analyzing, well, do I want this? Well, I mean, if I eat this, I'm not going to feel very good, but it's cheat day. I mean, how do I want to go about this? Do I want green? Do I want this? Right. I mean, just choose something and just go for it.
Yeah.
That's it. Just make a decision and just live with it and go forward with it, because either way, it's going to tell you one of two things: that you're succeeding at it and you're doing well, or number two, it wasn't the right move and maybe you didn't succeed with it, but you've learned a better lesson, so you know what to look for next time. So either one, I feel that problems or challenges, failure, they're all blessings in my opinion, 100%, because they all tell you what is about to come forward, right? If you've already made a decision that this is going to work and it doesn't end up working out, it tells you what to look for next time. You're going to be more aware of it.
Yeah, totally. I know we had a conversation, Grant, a couple days ago, and we were talking about, some things that you were kind of asking me about with business. We were kind of trading ideas and kind of helping each other. And then I talked to you today, and you've already implemented what we talked about 2 days ago. And that's, and that's like, and I was wondering, I'm like, I wonder what kind of guy Grant is. Like, is he going to just go into this, or is he going to be one of these things? Because I've talked to a lot of people, Grant, about, business or life or whatever, and they're talking, or they want to sign up for a fitness, and then you talk about it, and then 6 months later, they kind of send another message, and then another 6 months later, they send another message, and then they finally make this the thing, and they're like, I should have just done this 2 years ago, right? Yeah, like time is ticking, like, you got to make it happen. And I so agree with that, Grant. And I know there's a few instances where people they jump ahead and maybe they make the wrong decision, maybe they cause a bit of a disaster, but at least they did something, like I've done that before too. I'll post something on social media, for example, and then I'm like, a little while later, I'm like, I better delete that off there, because I'm like, that was dumb or whatever. And, and I don't, I learned though, I do that way less now, right? But like, you take action. And I mean, Craig Ballantyne always says action alleviates anxiety, right? Like if you're feeling stressed about something, or you feel like you're not fit, or you're not healthy, or you're not living your best life, or whatever, what can you do? Not how can you think, and how can you analyze, and how can you regurgitate the same story over and over and make excuses and blah, blah, blah. Because that's really what overanalyzing tends to do, is it just pulls excuses out. Oh, look at all the excuses I pulled out. Oh, good. Another reason not to take any action and improve my life. I can just stay stuck here forever.
Always notice how the excuses come in bulk, right? It's not just like, hey, like I can't do this because of this reason. All of a sudden, next thing you know, you're talking about like so many different examples that it doesn't even relate to the main topic at hand.
Yeah.
Right. It always just, these excuses come in piles. Just cashing them out. There you go. Take a couple of those. Just this way, it guarantees I don't have to make this decision today.
Yeah. But we all know, Grant, that when you don't make a decision, you are in fact making a decision. Because if you don't make a decision to improve, to change, to, progress, then you're making a decision to stay stuck or digress in most cases, because we rarely stay in one place. Usually we're either gaining weight or losing weight. We're building muscle, we're losing muscle, we're, becoming more positive or we're becoming more negative. Like there's always that tension. So if you're not taking action to do something and improve, then you are deciding to basically go backwards or to stay stuck where you are, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can attest to that.
Yeah. So is there anything else, Grant, that you kind of wanted to share with everybody before we sort of wrap this up? Anything that you think would be helpful for people maybe who are feeling, they have that scarcity mindset, they have a lot of fears, they don't feel like they can accomplish things?
I would say stop wasting time. I mean, that's ultimately when it comes down to. Just be honest with yourself. Stop wasting time. Get in the mud. I mean, you've already, if I'm talking to that one person, I'll say it like this: you've already been through tough times in your life, right? They have all served as a way to grow in some way, shape, or form. Right? So use that, right? Use that as your fuel to take action. Use that as fuel to make a decision, right? Make that until you don't have to think about that anymore, right? I would always be, and here's what we do, right? We get really exhausted because if I'm looking straight ahead, there's an amazing life coach. I'm not sure if I'm able to say her name or not, but amazing life coach.
If it's a positive thing, you can say their name.
Nyurka, so I'm kind of butchering her name a little bit, but yeah, so she used to work with Tony Robbins, fantastic. Anyway, so we're always doing this thing where we're either, when we're looking at our goals, it's straight ahead, right? But when we're fueled by something in our past that's like a negative thing. So for example, I never want to be like that couple that I was mentioning before, the husband and wife, that was kind of like a negative, it was a very negative environment, if you will. So if I'm always like, I'm going to do better than them, I'm always going to do better than them, or the bullies that said you couldn't do it, but I'm looking here and looking back and forth, I'm getting like, even now I'm getting dizzy just doing that, because that's ultimately what you're doing. If you're flip-flopping on a decision, that's what you're doing. You're exhausting yourself until you submit, right? In the wrestling world, submit to defeat, right? So make a decision. What I mean by what I was saying before, to put it all together, is use one thing to fuel you. If you're the type of person where you need something negative to be fueled by to make the decision to fight and go forward, then use that until you no longer need to use that anymore, and until you can start looking ahead clearly. But if you're that person that keeps looking forward and that's the way that best serves you, then keep going forward and keep your eye on whatever it is that you want. Make that image brighter, make it clearer, make it more defined. Do everything you can to put as much detail in that vision, because the more clear that you make that, the faster you're going to get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I want to just give an example for the listeners who maybe are like, hey, what does he mean by making your vision clear? I would say, let's say, for example, you want to lose 20 pounds and get strong, okay? So you got to not just say, okay, I want to lose 20 pounds. And so you kind of picture the scale. It's going to be down 20 pounds. You maybe picture how, looking at yourself in the mirror, giving yourself, maybe you take a picture of yourself. Okay, great. But if you can say, okay, when I lose 20 pounds, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to wear. This is how I'm going to feel. I'm going to go out and buy this. I'm going to save money right now because I'm going to buy that outfit and I'm going to do that. Or for a guy, maybe they don't call it an outfit. I'm going to go, buy those pair of jeans, or I'm going to, book a vacation to go here because, I'm going to feel, I want to really picture what that's going to look like and feel like. And if it's a money thing, like maybe you're trying to make a certain amount of money or whatever, start picturing, okay, you want to buy a house. What does that house look like? How does it smell? How's the layout of it? What color is it? What do you love about it? What do you, how is that? Just picture the most that you can and get the most detail. And I actually draw pictures, and they're really they're like stickman pictures. They're terrible. I'm not a very good drawer, but I draw it out anyways. And you could write it out. One of the things I did was what's your perfect day? This is what time I get up. This is what I do in the morning. This is what my kids look like. This is how I feel. This is, everything as specific as you can. It's just going to help you. Would you say yes to that, Grant?
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. actually quite a good drawer myself, so I would always draw like Dragon Ball Z characters, right? They're
Cool.
always jacked, always buff, right?
Yeah.
And I would watch that. Obviously, Terminator 2, Arnold Schwarzenegger, everybody loves him. But what I noticed was that I'm always projecting what I want to look like, right? So big pecs, right? Big arms, all this. We're not obviously going to skip leg day, but
Yeah.
right. So if you can draw it out, if you need that inspiration from different sources, go for it, look for it. But yeah, absolutely. And whatever that image is that you come up with and how you're going to look and how you're going to feel, intensify that, right? Make it that much brighter, make the image clearer. I always say, if I had a Polaroid picture, or say with your iPhone for more tech savvy people, and I came from the future, right? And I showed you a picture of you and what you're going to look like at your best shape, your best form, whatever, how you're going to feel. How much more likely are you going to go after that goal of looking like that and being like that? It's going to go from zero and like, being kind of on the fence about to 100%. If you saw that, because that's a promise. That is the image that we need to have in our minds. We need to be very clear on what we want. So we have to start using our imagination, right? We can't allow ourselves to be making decisions off of what we already know, because what we want needs more. Like, we need more information, more input, more objectivity. We need to kind of open ourselves to new opportunities and whatnot in order to have a bigger, better picture. But anyway, like I said, right? If I had a Polaroid picture showing in front of you of maybe a year or 2 years from now, whatever the case, and you look your best, that is what your focus should always be. So make that image whatever it is that you want. If it's finances, if it's having a certain career, if it's your body, whatever it is, that is what you want to make your priority. And that's what you want to do, is make your image that clear.
Yeah, and as you're talking, like, my head is going, Grant, because I'm just like, I want balance in my life so bad. And I've made that my word, balance, for 2021. And I'm like, I haven't really, like, I have ideas about it, but I think I need to really clearly write that down too, because that's a little bit more abstract, but yet it doesn't have to be, right? What does balance look like? What does my perfect balanced day look like? To write that out. I get up at 5 a.m. I do this. I do my mindfulness practice, I do my devotions, I do my pull-ups, I wash my face. Like, I have this routine. What does that look like? How do I feel? And then what does it look like when the kids wake up? How am I balancing? How am I spending time with them? Also spending time with my clients, spending time on my business, spending time outside, spending time with my husband. Like, what does that look like? I think I need to really make that clear. And I encourage our listeners, do the same thing. What is it that you really want to achieve? And write it out, draw it out, talk it out, whatever you need to do, make it super clear so that you can visualize it. Because if you can't visualize it, it's going to always be this abstract thing just kind of bouncing around in your brain, and you're going to have a really hard time, projecting that and making that happen.
And even if you don't know, quick note on that too, because I had to do this a lot of my lifestyle, right? Just trial and error.
Totally.
Right? Just try it out, because you're never going to have the perfect routine. You have to find it. You have to work with it, right? Don't be afraid of making decisions, right? The decision is going to give you an answer. It just depends on how fast you want it.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. Just go for it. And I mean, it sounds so cliche, but just take action. If you want to get in shape, call a coach if you're struggling and just sign up and do it. Or if you want to, sorry, you're going to say something. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, sorry to interrupt. It's oh man, I lost my train of thought. That's
okay. So if you want to coach, sign up with a coach. If you're like, oh, I need to mindset stuff, or I'm struggling with something, I need a therapist, call a therapist. Make it happen. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you need an outside person. You may not need an outside person, but you might need an outside person. I know for me, I needed an outside person.
That's the thing I was going to say. So there's a reason why the same thing is said over and over and over again, right? Raw, do it, make a decision, just go for it, right? It's because it works, right? There's no need to reinvent the wheel. I mean, it's already created, right? So just follow what actually works. The one guaranteed way of succeeding in whatever it is that you're after is just trying.
Do it.
Right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. It's all about these things. It's all about especially with whoever's listening to this. It's just how it's articulated to you, right? It's just a language that's used. If I'm telling someone how to like curl and do bicep curls, right? Some people just say, "Oh yeah, that feels fantastic," but I'm like, no, you gotta concentrate. Hold the weight until you feel the burning sensation on top of the bicep, and slowly work through the movement. Allow yourself to feel that more, right? They're going to resonate with that information a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
It's more clear, it's more concise. So all this really is language, right? No matter what, no matter how you look at it, no matter how many times you hear the same message, just said in different ways, the fact of the matter is you still have to make a decision, right? It's all about getting rid of what you don't want and replacing it with what you do want. Get rid of fear, get rid of doubt, allow yourself to live with freedom and fearlessness.
Awesome. Wow, thanks, Grant. And you guys have to go check out Grant's stuff. Grant, where's the best place for them to go find you?
Facebook, 100%.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah. So check me out on Facebook, Grant Corriveau. Yeah, check it out and tell me what you think. I always have some great funny videos that I put on for entertainment for people too, of stuff that people typically resonate with. So
well, I love the ones where you were body slamming each other on the bed, you and like a buddy or something, and I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like that just looks so fun. I wanted to be part of that. I got to get my sister. I have a sister that probably would do that. But yeah, your videos are hilarious, right? Like you got these funny things with your cat and like you're doing these crazy things, and it's like, talk about like getting over fear and just like getting it out there. And I feel like that just resonates from your Facebook page. Like you are an action taker, right? So you guys, you have to go check out Grant's stuff and you'll have a really good laugh. Like he's super, super entertaining. It's like a comedy show when you scroll through there.
Thank you.
So good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Grant. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing with us. Really excited to just continue to be able to talk with you and interact with you and learn from you too, Grant. And I hope that, I know that this will be helpful for all of our listeners. So thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. This episode is brought to you by my company, Power Fitness Online. We are a tight-knit fitness community, and we guide you every step of the way to get fit and stay fit through our live workouts, nutrition coaching, and incredible support team. Go to powerfitnessedson.com to learn more. Thank you for tuning into the podcast today. If you enjoyed it, please leave a positive review on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music, or wherever you're listening. And if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, I would love to see your comments. I would love to know what you think about this episode and interact with you. I love hearing from you. Once again, I'm Carla Rand, and this is the Carla Rand Show, and I can't wait to see you next week for our next episode.